Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about over-engineered solutions and how I feel about pre-packaged and off-the-shelf products. So let's get into it. So this was I felt it was a very leading question. The reason why I felt it was a little bit leading was because, if I remember correctly, the exact term was, Fredrik, how do you feel about over-engineered pre-packaged solutions? It feels like there's someone here with, I'm not going to say an axe to grind, but it doesn't set a very positive tone for solutions like Gatsby or Create React App or I don't know, Drupal, examples like that. But I will touch on this anyway, because I think I'd like to think that I surprised the person who asked this a little bit, because I got the hint that this person had started to kind of know or believe themselves to know kind of how I think about these things. You see, the thing is that I will honestly admit that I am a strong advocate of eating your own dog food, and the term basically means that if you build something, you use it as well. Because if you build it yourself and you ship it to somebody else and you're not using it, then you don't really get an appreciation for what's working, what's not working. I mean, if you are one of the consumers of your own product and you're the developer at the same time, then you're in a unique position to actually make that a really, really nice experience, right? Now, that's not an exact fit for this specific topic. What it does touch on something that I think is extremely important, and that is that thing I was saying. If you are the developer and the consumer at the same time, you are in a unique position to actually do something. Because, I mean, most users, they can only passively say, I like this, I don't like this. Either they have to deal with it, or they stop using the product, right? And as a developer, it's a very similar thing, because when you get enough experience or skill, and like you get a little bit ahead in your career. In the beginning of things, I understand. I mean, in the beginning, it's very hard to get anything productive done, and you quite often you depend on third-party tools. But when you get a little bit under the surface, you start to realize that you can kind of build things the way you want them instead of having somebody else build them for you. Sometimes there are absolutely situations where you don't really have the time or energy or something like that, and it's very convenient to use this third-party tool. But when you get to a point, and I'm so happy that I'm kind of starting to get to that point where I feel that it's almost in the way, some of these tools. I mean, they're great. Some of the stuff that they make is really great, but then I kind of look at some libraries, and quite a lot of them, it just happens like, I'm like, I could build this for my use case. I mean, I understand this use case. I understand that they make it generic so that everybody has something, but I mean, almost half of the features that they have, I don't really need. And if I just did that and that, I could, like, in just an hour or two, make something that fits me perfectly. It's like I can tailor my own suit instead of going into some store and buying something that is designed to sell to the most amount of people, that kind of fits everybody but not perfectly. And to me, that's like the strength of being a developer. I can custom make my own thing so it is perfect for me. That's something that I'm a strong advocate of. I'm not saying that you should be dumb. You shouldn't do that for every single thing, but you should really think about it in general. If you have the time and you feel confident enough that you can do it, then you should, because trust, the experience will not only make you a better developer, but it will also give you a position where if things change further down the line, you have the power to impact that. You don't have that with a third-party tool. You can at best go to their GitHub account or wherever and contact the developers who are in charge and just tell them, hey guys, I need this feature, can you fix it? And hopefully they will say yes and have the time to actually do it, but most of the time you're going to have to wait a little while. But if you are in control and you know how it works, you can go and change it yourself. But the thing I said to this person was that that's my personal perspective. I've just seen it so many times where complicated and off-the-shelf solutions, especially when many people are doing it at the same time, they just add in their own tools. And I mean, if you have 5-10 different developers in the same company who just add in their own favorite off-the-shelf too, and then they all need to make all of these things to work together, the thing that they are missing is that that is a very similar thing as to doing integration-based work. You have multiple systems, you have multiple tools or systems that need to talk to each other. They were not real, like, some of them weren't really designed with the idea to be integrated, or at the very least, they are being developed in parallel to each other. And I can promise you that it's a very tough thing to integrate two systems that were never designed to talk to each other. It's not a very smooth process. Ideally, you want just to have one single tool all the time, because then there's a consistency, there's a plan there's a roadmap, if you will, for that system to do something very specific. But when you have multiple one of them, it's kind of like trying to carry a bunch of Lego blocks instead of having one solid piece of something. It's more error prone, it's more clunky, and odds are that you will like drop something. It's a less smooth experience, if you will. But there is a very powerful and great use case for when to use these off-the-shelf solutions. Now, my argument, the way that I think about this, is that when I know what the end goal is going to be, when I know the lifespan of my project, I am 100% sure that this will never progress beyond this point. That's when I start thinking about, all right, is there something here that can save me quite a lot of time by just using that tool directly, and that fits this use case very nicely. I don't do it when I am working with a project that has an unknown deadline. The reason is, as I said, because if I make decisions now, because remember, this project might span several years, it's impossible for me to know if my off-the-shelf tool that I picked, that I just downloaded from somewhere, is going to fit the use case in a year or in a week or something like that. It might fit it today. It kind of like does sort of what I need, and I know that today I could retrofit it a little bit, and then it does exactly the thing that we kind of need for this use case. But the question is that going to be true tomorrow? Is it going to be true in a week? What happens when the company takes off and there's like tons of new features being added? How as well is this platform going to behave if the use case keeps on changing? That's a big risk. It's a big risk to me as a developer, because I need to maintain this, and it's a big risk to the company, because if I invest in something that isn't really well suited to make all these new feature requests happen, I might actually either be forced to rewrite the thing, or put myself in a much more complicated situation than if I built it with the intention of it to be able to scale in the future and to actually be customizable, right? But if that's not the case, if I'm doing some job for a friend or as a consultant, I know that I have a time budget. It's supposed to be this website or this thing here, and then I will ship it, and then that's the whole story. I'm shipping like a solid piece of something, if you will. Then it makes quite a lot of sense, because there's no unknown future. WordPress, as an example, is a great tool. Like some people think that I don't like WordPress. On the contrary, I actually think it's a great tool. Honestly, I wish that we had more tools like that, because those sorts of off-the-shelf solutions empower people to make something very specific, and that's exactly what it is designed to do. And I mean, they have done it in a genius fashion, if you ask me. And it's perfect for that use case. I would not use WordPress if I'm going to found a company and start like making I found a new enterprise of some sort, and the company takes off and something like that, and I need to do active development for years and years and years. That would be a big risk. But if I'm making a company website for some small business, or if I'm doing some consultancy work where, I don't know, they need a prototype website, they need some there's an event coming up, they need a very nice looking website or something like that, and they still need some CMS features, then it's a perfect fit, or a personal website, something like that, because it's designed to solve that exact problem, and that's the thing that I think is important. So what I want you to take away from this is that I don't have an axe to grind with, I don't know, a Create React app or Gatsby or Drupal or WordPress. Like, you can name your favorite off-the-shelf solution that kind of does a lot of work for you. that's not a problem. It's just that you need to really know what the use case is. That's the thing that I'm after. Like the thing that I have an axe to grind with, or that's not the tools. I think the tools are great because I mean, when you know how to use them and when to use them, they're perfect. But the problem comes when you have people who use them in the wrong fashion. To make an analogy, it's like watching somebody try to saw a log in two pieces with a hammer. That's how I look at it. That's what it looks like to me. Like they can do it. It's just like, why aren't you doing it this way? It's so much more effective, right? And then that goes both ways. If I see somebody, and because the other perspective is true as well, there are developers who like will always build their own thing regardless of situation, and that's just not feasible. Like I mean, I almost get a little bit upset when I see somebody forcibly saying that, yeah, no, I don't want to use this library here because I mean it's just I prefer to write my own stuff, and then they waste tons and tons of time and build a half-ass or half-baked solution that doesn't really work anyway because they for some reason didn't make that cost value analysis in a correct fashion. They overestimated their own ability or underestimated the complexity of the problem that this library is solving. It's kind of like back in the day, someone would prefer to build their own implementation of jQuery instead of using jQuery. I hope this makes sense to you. So yeah, that's pretty much my perspective. If you know the use case, if you know the tool and you know exactly when it's going, like how to use it, then I absolutely love these off-the-shelf solutions. And usually they're a perfect fit for when you have a very defined deadline, because then you don't have any unknowns. If you do have a project that you don't really have a deadline for, be careful, because trust me, what's true today will not necessarily be true tomorrow. Have a great day.